we do record these meetings always, right? Just in case you run one. Having the recording will also be published on the working group repository. Perry was actually organizing or asking around a bit for this time, right? So let's see if he shows up too. I felt. So this is where we'll publish notes for these instances again. And yeah, so the question is a bit, Kanya mentioned he can't join. And Pi just says, yeah, he can't join too, but he doesn't want to be kicked out of the working group. Don't demote me, please, he says. All right. He's alluding to the fact that we're keeping a members list, right, on this repository too. Basically, if you want to be a member, you can open an issue there, pull request, or just voice it in the working group channel on Discord. You would be invited to these meetings on the Google Meet, but there's also this always possible to just join a meeting through the Luma notification and calendar. Yeah, 3 strikes and you're out, exactly. So, but Kanya not joining today means he's also not doing the demo as he promised, right? He wanted to show view graph a bit. And Perry collected some other topics, I believe. But is it written down somewhere? I wanted to talk about payment channels is maybe one direction. Show view graph. One channels, okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe we can talk a bit about the Catalyst proposal we're thinking about, Trim, right? So one to file, where maybe some more contributors could be interested. And we could give maybe just a general update on how things go, what's up, and on our end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know sort of how up to date everyone is on the current task list and recent developments and such, but at least I think it's always useful to reiterate, once too many rather than once too few, that the incremental decommits is here. We're working on incremental commits as well. One of the other features that we started to map out that we probably need for a thing that's coming is a Blockfrost API thing. So when you spin up a header head, you can sort of have the Cardano node remotely. So that's a feature we're going to be working on as well. Any other sort of immediate updates that you think? I'm really hoping that we can get the head-in-head sort of feature reasonably stable as well, but that's sort of a delighter rather than anything else. And then the partial fan out. What's the status on that, Sebastian? We spoke about it earlier today, actually, but
we had just some person on Discord today and asking, hey, I have this one Hydra head with 1,000 UTXOs inside and I closed it. What now? And of course, this doesn't fit the single fan out transaction, exactly one of the known limitations of the current release version. So let me just include a link here. That would be it, right? So when using Hydra, be aware of this. Partial fan out means once closing a head, which can happen by any moment, every participant can close the head any time. You can realize the last agreed state of the layer 2 in multiple steps if needed on the layer 1. And this works around this. Everything needs to fit in one transaction, an obvious limitation. So what we did there is we've broken down the issue. We didn't start work on it on integrative work so far on it. We had only some experiments. I think the issue, and to find that back briefly, would be this one. And so we're aiming to work with BLS accumulators there, change the commitment scheme used inside of a Hydra head to use these BLS accumulators, which allows for basically proving that some current state evolves to some given new state, and these were the elements which were removed in between, so we can do like partially take things out. And yeah, while some experiments have been done in these, I think, linked repositories there. Oh, I think linked the same. Sorry about that. Partial. This is the issue. This one. So, yeah, so Thomas Velikop, which is a cryptography engineer, I think also working for IO, had been helping us a bit on finding the primitives, which is experimented in isolation, and how integration works there needs to happen. Hey, Sandeep, twice in the meeting.
And then, yeah, you mentioned the catalyst proposal that we are currently drafting. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about it, but in a nutshell, it's a layer 2 interoperability proposal to explore, based on the recent research. So in the first instance, that would be, between isomorphic ledgers, so Hydra heads in the existing instance, but when protocols like Midgard, for example, is coming out, I assume it would extend to those other layer 2 protocols as well, which would allow sort of more interoperability between these layer 2 protocols.
It's actually something we talked about 2 weeks ago in exactly this round here. You would see the meeting notes here. Interestingly, right, the group revolved around discussing these, like how would now these layer 2 ledgers, these smaller ledgers, necessarily smaller than the layer 1 ledger parts, be usable or reusable, and how would they be communicating, right? Topics like the braiding of radix and cross-chain transactions or cross-ledger transactions have been brought up. And so these topics were discussed 2 weeks ago. We looked briefly at a paper which was published by Max Jurenko from the Tokyo Technology Institute, I guess it's the name, which is about really doing transactions across EU TXO ledgers in an atomic way. So you would basically have one thing happen in one ledger, and also on the other end ensure that this is happening at the same time. And yeah, that would be quite interesting to take further as an R&D project. It's actually going down this route of interhead Hydra communication, which has been often pitched in the past. And yeah, that would be a potential catalyst proposal. Yeah, Sandeep, we didn't really put it down yet. I think we're collecting only the thing. I believe we have a brief write-up, but it's not yet public. So it's more about, let me just find something. So what I can share is right away is
because we had this research paper come out recently as well, right, on this?
Yeah.
I believe it was covered in the one of the live streams from the Tokyo Tech thing. They did mention this.
Yeah. Exactly. Let me briefly go through that roughly what the idea is. It's really a draft, and so far I asked also in a Discord thread about it who would be interested in it. So Perry's got interested, although not technical. So we'll see about that. can we just whatever. The basic idea is to focus really on cross-chain interoperability, really, or really layer 2 interoperability, and maybe connecting Hydra heads, but basically also other L2s, and maybe we can revisit this a bit. One notable other, maybe native, I'm not sure. Layer 2 could be Midgard, right? Now, briefly, this would be mostly about, okay, in case we have EU TXO ledgers as a layer 2, and one example of that would be a Hydra head. How would those things be made like you can communicate with each other? So you could, for example, the problem statement really is that while these layer 2 protocols, right, create greater scalability, they usually fragment the state or kind of operate at least at the lower level of decentralization. So basically a lower number of validators or have some other trade-off. And while this may be fine for one application, it might not be fine for another use case, a user. And so the question is, while we have these layer 2 protocols or kind of smaller worlds, would there be a way so we can still make these things interconnect or communicate or be compatible to each other, such that we can are not forced to go through the layer 1 to interact with multiple of these layer 2s, right, through the lifetime of a user journey. So that's basically, so if it is too small eventually, right, we want to make bridge gaps, so it's maybe not too clear in this problem statement. And I think the goal of this, maybe an R&D proposal, would be more of a, there is this research paper which we went through 2 weeks ago, which is really about this using the based on the fact that we have it's called isomorphic here, but it really is like a extended UTXO ledger in a layer 2, which can enforce back to the layer 1. So it is this true layer 2 nature, which means you can enforce state on the layer 1. It really is built on the safety of the layer 1. If you can escalate that way, and you have this expressiveness of a layer UTXO layer 2, can you make these things compatible and communicate across individual ledgers? And the goal would be, for example, of course, this is maybe the degenerate case, because it's very much similar, like what people might know from Lightning, where you lock something up in one Lightning channel and you have something equivalent unlocked on the other Lightning channel, right? This is similar cross-ledger communication, but the ledgers, they're really Lightning channels, which are very basic in expressiveness. Making it work for payments is maybe one of the first use cases to evaluate, but maybe the goal should be that, okay, we have maybe a smart contract in an off-chain ledger. Think of an auction which is run in another head, but we would want to submit a bid in one Hydra head, which is to an auction which runs in another Hydra head. So imagine that somebody runs an auction and some person on that Hydra head is also participating in many other Hydra heads, like individual user channels. Imagine like a Light Wallet provider has channels with their all Light Wallet users, and there they have their layer 2 balance, and they want to use this layer 2 balance when interacting with the auction, which happens to happen on another layer 2 ledger. Can we make a transaction on this per user layer 2, which interacts with the smart contract running in the other head? And this is this project about, roughly. Doing some open source prototyping, maybe, of like implementing roughly what is sketched, of course, very theoretically in this paper, seeing how a transaction, it's basically a two-phase commit of like wrapping, unwrapping across ledgers, which are all UTXO based. So it's probably some very similar glue coding like we do usually build these layer 2s anyways, and the technical report or so. This could be like an interesting proposal if somebody is motivated to work on it or flesh out the proposal too. So far, it's really me and Trim, Max as a as a consultant from the original research here. Perry is interested, not so technical, but is very good explainer. So maybe somebody else motivated to join in on the fun and just reach out. And that's basically it, what I wanted to share about this one. And maybe we can, Phil, as you're here, will Midgard be, what's the expressiveness of the layer 2 there? Will it be having general smart contract execution, or is it a subset of like, what's the
Yes,
expressiveness?
it's Plutus script execution. Yep.
Perfect. So that basically would qualify exactly to the same kind of research, right? So the question is, if you have the Midgard instance, which will be this a bigger, I understand, a bigger instance of a ledger, right, which is run by a known set of validators. And if that hosts some smart contracts, some applications, can people where this validator set, this bigger validator set, also are part of a Hydra head, right? If you could use this Hydra head to interact with the thing on the layer 2, on the Midgard layer 2, like natively or kind of without borders here, that would be very nice, because the security you get from running ahead with somebody in a two-party setting, for example, is very high. Whereas in Midgard, it's probably dependent on who runs the validators, who runs the, I think it's an optimistic value challenge, right? Something like that.
Right. The nice thing about Midgard is that it's basically fuel in that the validator set is permissionless, so it doesn't matter who's validating. The trust assumption is just, there's one honest operator, or one honest person monitoring the state for fraud, and that the smart contracts don't have vulnerabilities, right? Because that's the big risk of a layer 2 protocol.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be happy to get involved in this, because definitely creating standards, getting an early representation for non-state channel roles makes sense.
It could just be that Midgard will be the layer 2 to rule them all, which hosts all applications in the single like instance, right? But as soon as you have maybe 2 Midgards, or maybe you have a Midgard and an Asgard, you might want to make these things compatible too, right? And that could be quite interesting research, right? And
right, yeah, no, Midgard is not designed to be the whole design philosophy of Midgard is to make it modular. So there's supposed to be many for different things, because the real use case of layer 2s is that no matter what you're doing, you have to make some trade-offs, right? There's no one blockchain that's just going to be the best at everything. So, for instance, for micropayments, right, Midgard is not going to be the best at micropayments. And, for gaming, it's not going to be the best at. Of course, you need all these roll-ups for different things.
Yes, very exciting. So that would be very cool to see if we can get, I think then we can maybe set the goal even clearer to say, okay, we have maybe at least a prototype demonstration of a transaction from one Hydra head be seen in this Hydra head, and then also executed on the Midgard on the other end. Then basically we have this very small world, which is an individual Hydra head, to this medium-sized world, which is Midgard maybe, and those things can interact and can set the starting precedent for some cross-ledger communication standards.
Have you guys taken a look at the stuff CF is working on with IBC?
Yeah, I checked out IBC a bit. I mean, IBC is this traditional cross-chain communication where you would need to validate the state of the target system, right? And basically prove it correct, or show it correct, observe it. And I'm not sure how exactly this is done in individual relay implementations. I mean, the IBC one for Cardano done by the CF, I believe, we would rely on a certain certified stake distribution and then individual block validation, something like that.
Yeah, it relies on Mithril. It's a pretty cool use case of.
Yeah.
So as you said, it's
exactly.
like a stake-weighted certification of inclusion of those UTXOs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is definitely parallels to like
Yeah, I
this
agree,
cross-chain communication.
Yeah, it's a different conversation than layer 2 communication. But I'd be interested in seeing, have you checked out AgLayer or any of the layer 2 communication layers? And
Not yet. Not yet.
I think that
Would
those
be
would
happy if.
definitely be very relevant. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds cool. Yeah. Good. So the invitation goes out to anyone right now. I won't be able to promote this very much, but would be interested to work on it in next fund, which is starting, I guess, if successful, January, and could be cool. Yeah, I'm going to invite everyone interested, anyone interested. Okay, so we had some comments here from Chingles also on the chat. Want to voice them also? Oh, he's not. Oh, he's here. Yeah. Or should we move a conversation maybe in this direction? Exactly. So maybe you wanted to speak about your proposal.
Oh yeah,
Matt
sure.
James?
I didn't plan for much speaking, but then yeah, this is pretty straightforward on what's gonna be happening. We're gonna have one proposal just to make adoption a bit friendlier for TypeScript, JavaScript developers. So want to provide all the endpoints where people can import class call functions and basically to start the node and all the different functions that is required. And of course, integration with the web UI, right? Where users can connect their wallet and fetch the UTXOs friendly, easy, and sign the transactions. So yeah. Also, like providing all the listeners that's required to listen for all the changes that's needed to reflect the state of the Hydra head. That will be part of the WebSocket and how the integration going to be like. And one of the output, or maybe two, I think I wrote two of them. One is the Hydra Doom, right? We want to give an example like how it's going to be used. Obviously, it's going to be objective of that is to create a good example and also to test that everything that works on Hydra Doom is being delivered correctly. So that will be like I call that a smoke test kind of thing. Another one is minimalistic web pages. So you can think like a starter kit. So the starter kit there is like the back end, the front end, basically our goal is like npm or npx start Hydra apps, that kind of CLI command, and everything will be set up for you, and hopefully that's the dream.
Very, very nice. Also very cool that you directly link to, I think, and it should be identified with this. There is this SDK write-up, right, which you're, I guess, in a way claiming a bit working already right now, maybe in course of this Catalyst proposal. I would like to bring one other thing to your attention, which could be interesting, which is a bit of, well, this SDK here really is more of oh, I didn't write it up. Let me find it. So the SDK really is for, making, yes, exactly what we did with Hydra Doom, or when we did the chess game. We needed to kind of ad hoc build this one Lucid provider to have Lucid talk to the Hydra node, or have Mesh talk to the Hydra. I think for Mesh, we didn't do it really fully. We just basically side channeled the things, right? So it was never first class, and we just, I'm not sure why we just delayed working on this a bit, right? I'm very happy that you kind of can pick this up. And this is really for creating applications interfacing with a Hydra head.
That's right.
By talking to a Hydra node instead of talking to what is other topical providers, Kupo or some indexers and Cardano TX submission API, whatever, right?
That's right. So one of the Fund 14, I mean, a bit further away kind of goal is for education, right? So once we have this tooling available for Hydra, the next starter kit that will be with this is not sure if you guys have saw it, the TX Pipe Astera game to learn about UTXOs and,
nice.
So I think that is definitely a very nice capstone project kind of thing where people can learn and play along. So imagine that game, and then Hydra is being used as the node and do all the communication and having a game running on Hydra. That will be I would say the second game, like after Hydra Doom. That might be like the next proposal after the tooling is done.
Yeah, that's great to hear. definitely will be voting for those proposals. I think I said on the first meeting that like that's the #1 blocker for people not using Hydra in the current state. It's just that's the dev stack of basically every major app developer in the ecosystem. Like they have their on-chain language and the off-chain language. At least like some large component of it is written in TypeScript facing languages. So I think that's going to be really valuable.
So I just converted the draft item to an issue on our thing. I would like to bring to your attention, Jingles, and also to everyone. Let me just share my screen for some exposure here. So while this SDK thing, right, is what you now gladly picked up, is really about making, for example, Mesh.js or other JavaScript TypeScript-based APIs to talk to a Hydra head directly, which is about getting UTXOs from it, be able to construct and submit transactions easily to it, right? This is more than using an already open head as if it would be like the Cardano layer 1. Now there is another layer to this. And I think we separated this out as a very rough sketch. I need to detail this. I just created it like now. Right now, what you would see, and probably many of you have tried it already, is you start a Hydra node, and you can interact with the API to open a head, to initiate a head, to commit to it, and then later to send transactions. We built this very demonstrative terminal user-based Hydra TUI client, right? To really, this is also what we use in our tutorials and so on. For example, in the first getting started, you would be faced with this terminal user interface where you can initiate by pressing I and then open and so on, right? Which is maybe not as great of a first start experience as it could be. And having a bit of a more web-based approach where first you would need to, the goal would be maybe to have more of a web-based dashboard provided to you out of the box from a Hydra node, which is really like this terminal user interface. Of course, you need to authenticate, make sure that you can't close the head without authentication and so on, right? But ultimately, it's a web-based application which allows us to open, initiate, and administrate a Hydra head instance ultimately, which is, of course, the layer on top of only sending and consuming the ledger state, the UTXO. This is now about really administrative stuff, which could be very interesting to build or work on, actually. It's really outside of the Hydra node core offering it uses the API, which is already there ideally, or expands it on it. And it's really could improve the first start experience and the adoption also here too. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, some early feedback regarding that. I think that's great. I think that the first barrier to entry, though, isn't the command prompt. It's the Nix build system. Like 99% of people will run it once and run into issues and then give up because that's just the life cycle. So I would say the first step should be getting a Docker container or some other build form that you can guarantee that won't happen. And then the second thing is, the Docker container plus that is a great start. Like then you're basically there, right? Because you guarantee that they're not gonna like run away and scream. But the second thing is most people, especially non-companies, right? Most like solo developers, freelancers, etc., aren't running their own nodes, especially while learning or trying new software, right? They're using like Blockfrost or Maestro API keys. And yeah, having something like that for Hydra is also extremely important, to be able to like either get a subscription and, have a head opened for you via Blockfrost or via Maestro or some external provider, because it makes it so that, one, you don't need a beefy computer to do this, right? Because a lot of developers are in like Vietnam and countries where they can't afford this stuff. And two, especially while learning, people don't want to deal with their own info.
So Just to touch on that, I was talking to Blockfrost a little bit earlier, and there's two things coming sort of in that respect. One is the split of the Hydra node itself from the Cardano node through Blockfrost API, and the other one is also a hosted Hydra head thing coming. But when, I have no idea, making no promises, but it is a discussion that has been had, so it will be coming.
Thanks that you bring it up, Phil. I keep preaching the non-requirement of Nix is very important for getting started experiences, right? So you will be delighted to see that our getting started really is about like Docker containers, and it just pull images and get started this way. Yes, having a Hydra head, maybe a sandbox environment to get started, get your feet wet easily is maybe an improvement even further to this. Although for this setup, you don't need a beefy machine at all, right? Getting rid of maybe if you want to really run on a testnet, if you look at this other tutorial here, this uses just plain binaries, right? To mix it up a bit, but there is no Nix also here. To not need a full Cardano node to talk to preview, for example, that certainly is very, very much what we need to address right now, and this is what we're doing right now. And I think we even had once a Demeter recipe for having Hydra node running remotely and so on, even with the terminal user interface piped through something Santiago did. I'm not sure, it never really took off, I guess, but yeah, they're all very, very good inputs because this is very important to make it easy to use. And yeah, Nix is here in our case only for very advanced usages if you want. And often as an alternative, there's just build the binaries and use the ones we build.
Yeah, I mean, from teaching Emergo classes every weekend, right, the number one thing, right, people give up on development tooling in Cardano is just because of frustration getting it set up, right? Even things that are very easy to set up, like Koios and Agmios and things like this, it's just too much for most people. So like it's like the whole button thing, right? Where like if you have a survey and you have one additional button, like it'll like exclude like 30% of people from it. It's like you need it to just work. And that's why the API key, just being able to plug in like Hydra, Blockfrost, or whatever, would be so great. But yeah, glad to see that there is Docker. That's awesome. I didn't even know about that. I think that, yeah, that's got to be like shoved in the user's face.
Yeah, read the fucking manual. No, Jingles, just go on.
Yeah, for Fund 13, CF and Mesh have a very pretty interesting proposal. Not too sure if you guys know about the EVM. There's the Ganache, there's the local setup where you can install and then the local instance will pop up and the blockchain will run. So it's like a mainnet, testnet kind of mock locally. For the next step, once we have done this will be like the very first one. The next one, obviously, the team has already planned for Hydra. So imagine the same setup, and then you can pick your Hydra version, and then you'll set up from your local machine. So from a developer learning experience perspective, it's just a double click install and press a button to start the entire nodes, and you can just play with it. So rather than hosted, rather than Demeter, yeah, it will be localized and run, and yeah, is for adoption. So developer experience, that kind of removing one button or removing 10 CLI commands, you know, that's the objective. So that will be up and coming. This is ultra raw and alpha news. Don't want to promise and make you guys excited too much because we haven't even done the Cardano node version of it, but it's definitely up and coming. And Hydra will be definitely next, and then Midnight will be even further down the road.
There is this Cardano Up project, right, by Chris and others, Blink, to which I believe we had contributed even a Hydra way of thing, but it's still required. I think there was this requirement of a specific Docker image which contains exactly for Arch Linux, and for Arch 64, 64-bit ARM.
Also, if people have to go to external tooling to do this, then it's also another step, right? Because now they have to learn about Hydra, and then they have to go find about Cardano Up. It needs to be like,
So we should maybe embrace one of these tools and say, easiest is to just get started. Hey, Cardano up this, right? So we as a community kind of just, maybe this tool is in now, maybe this one is better in the future, right? Depends on what's, but that's the normal way of things, right? Just always strive to more minimalistic or more simpler setup still. And the first impression counts really here, I believe. But Trim, you will make sure that the team will drive into this direction very, very much, right? Okay.
Yeah, having tried to do some of the setup myself before I joined Even.io, I know a few things that need to be changed. As soon as I get done with a big time-consuming project, I can get back to the things that I really want to get fixed.
One thing I forgot to mention before, Jim, was right. Having Hydra Doom as your litmus test for having a good SDK, or this is definitely not easy to get right, because you have about like 1 or 2 milliseconds to build a transaction, right? So Lucid was not able to do this. I think we didn't try Blaze or so, but that's really not much time. And so very efficient code is needed.
I saw the construction of the CBOR. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't I wouldn't try to I wouldn't benchmark against that, because you'll wind up with a very nasty TX builder.
We'll probably do like a 1 frame per second Doom as a litmus test. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I think it seems like we have quite a few interesting Catalyst proposals coming in. Maybe let's keep sharing the love using the Discord channels. By the way, quick reminder, I renamed it in the Intersect. I mean, there's so many channels in that server. I just called it WG Hydra, the same as the repository is named. And so it's hard to keep an overview, I know, but I hope this doesn't put you off too much. It's shorter now, so that's one thing. And but I think you or most of you successfully reached us on either the IoT server of Ask Hydra or this working group Hydra in the Intersect, and I think that should be more than enough. Maybe we should retire one of the other channel going forward. Let's see. But yeah, my hope is still that maybe this workgroup can evolve even to some more, and I think maybe this Catalyst proposal even involve Midgard a bit more. And really, Hydra is just the first building block, which was built, not the last, and certainly not the best. Good.
Yeah,
any other topics?
Capacity is, but one of the things that I'm interested in, that I'd like to get the other layer 2s to collaborate on, is a forced inclusion mechanism. Because one problem that layer 2s have, right, is censorship from the operators, right? So for Hydra, right, if you have a delegated topology and say it's an auction, right, you as a bidder are not a participant. So you send your bid to the operator, and they could just ignore you, right? And for an auction, right, that might not matter so much, but when it's like a lending platform, it would matter a lot, right, if you're going to get liquidated. So how layer 2s work in Ethereum is you have two options. One, you can submit your transaction to the layer 2 network, right, in which case you trust the operator to include it, and the operator can censor you. The second way is you can submit to an inbox contract on the layer 1, right? And this is a forced inclusion mechanism, because before the operator can advance the layer 2 state, they need to show that the layer 1 inbox is emptied, right? And that the advancement of the state accounts for the pending transactions in the inbox. I think that this is interesting to almost all layer 2s, and I think that standards for this and a framework for this would be pretty beneficial to everyone.
Can this generalize through a layer 1 contract, or would it be more of what happens if you don't do it, right? Because or does each layer 2 needs to be designed in a way that it kind of really consumes this layer 1 inbox, which basically could severely limit its throughput, no?
So it's throughput per block, but a layer 2 would have many transactions per. So say a layer 2 is processing, for every one Cardano transaction, it's processing 1,000 transactions on the layer 2, right? And then publishing to Cardano, in one transaction. Your forced inclusion, right, is just happening at the cadence of the Cardano block. I guess it's different for Hydra because layer 2 is traditionally just publish every block. But
you're talking about rollups, where
Yeah.
basically there is a state commitment on the layer 1, a repetitive one, and there's the basic causes like compression or aggregation of transactions, right? And I think depends a bit on how we classify layer 2 here, but I am interested in the idea. I think making the mechanism of sometimes you want to, like, in the end, it can also be like just a punishment protocol, right? Which could apply to have more control over like off-chain in the end, it's off-chain processing of transactions. And now you want to make sure that, okay, you have some application which really is interested in challenging facts which happen off-chain. And now we can maybe add on to the overall like concept.
I think you could do this with Hydra too by just enforcing in a contract. You add like a timestamp, right? And it's like the force include timestamp, where like every at that timestamp interval to advance the Hydra state, someone needs to interact with the Hydra contract basically and show that the inbox has been emptied and that those UTXOs have been committed. Right. So it'll just add in sort of that layer, right? Because if you're going to do incremental commits anyway, you can do basically interval-based incremental commits.
Yeah, it reminded me a bit of like a workflow where a user puts down funds, a deposit as we call it there, and head picks it up, right? But what if it doesn't pick it up? And this is exactly right now. There is no punishment whatsoever. If it's not picked up, it's just not picked up. But maybe this seems to be an interesting mechanism to do some enforcing there, right? And probably then some punishment if not. But I mean, yeah, if you need to, that the state can't advance on the layer 2, that's what you're saying, right? Or the others validators wouldn't accept if it is not be advanced.
Right. For a rollup, right, the state commitment lives on the layer 1. So the layer 1 contract just says like you can't change the state commitment without showing.
Yeah.
But because the state for Hydra is a signature, I guess you could.
Yeah.
You'd have to have some different. Maybe the signature would have to include some certification that the inbox is empty at that time. I'm not sure how it would work, but I guess that'd be the scope of the proposal, right?
Yeah. No, this sounds actually quite interesting, and I think it's best exercised if we have a canonical problem statement or application which would require something like this. And I think the example you gave with an auction where leaving out a bid is actually an option. If you're not the validator, you cannot be sure that your bid was accepted or not, right? Like having this challenged a bit and see how it kind of is enforced on one or the other concept is actually an interesting take.
Right, or even a more interesting take, I think, would be just a delegated Hydra solution where you're trying to withdraw your funds as a user. You're trying to decommit, and the operator is just ignoring you.
Yeah, but this can always happen, right? If you don't trust that any one of the operators is like in Hydra, the concept there is at least you need to trust at least one Hydra operator, one of the validators is honest. So
right, but my point is that it doesn't have to necessarily always happen. If you have an L1 transaction, right? If instead of requesting to the operator to decommit, you directly interact with the Hydra contract, in an L1 transaction, right? With this sort of inbox mechanism.
Yeah, you basically prove that the head is taking something of yours hostage or is not live by interacting with the layer 1, right? So it reminds me a bit of like also in Lightning, watchtowers and so on.
And I've seen this delegated head topology is a really attractive way of operating it for a lot of applications. At least until we have, the super light client that can be embedded in a wallet and stuff.
Yeah, I know. Everybody likes this. Nobody likes to operate infrastructure and true connectivity, right?
Yeah, it's one of Moxie's axioms, right? Like nobody wants to run a server.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think given that I've sort of accepted that this is going to be popular, even though I think it's extremely dangerous, I think that something like this would be extremely helpful in lowering the risk of that. Because there's nothing we can do about at the L2 level, but just having some mechanism where users can just circumvent that and directly interact with the contracts on the layer 1, I think would be at least some. It would mitigate some concerns. Not everything, but a bit. It would help.
I imagine, would it be something like an optional, but eventually every head uses it, a kind of a punishment scheme where you would need to say, okay, every of the operators of such a head would basically say, oh yeah, okay, if you can prove me not ignoring your requests, right, you can take so much from me, right? And you basically collateralize the damage of what the non-availability, the non-liveness of off-chain ledger has. And this could give you, okay, this is secured by so much, and maybe you can even push the burden of proving somebody wrong now into this typical watchtower scheme. And that would make the overall thing more appealing. And I think that's not even tied really exactly how the layer 2 operates, right? It's actually anyone who promises to do anything which is not currently on-chain, any off-chain processing, it should happen, could be maybe driven by something like this, such a punishment scheme. Interesting thought.
Yeah, the nice thing is that generally this is very hard, but having the layer 1 transaction timestamped is data availability that because it's hard to say, okay, did you actually ask me to do this, or are you lying and you're just saying that so you can get the money? But with the layer 1 transaction, you just show the timestamp, right? And it's clear that you did ask them to do that at that time. So yeah, totally happy to
but at the same time, right, this would require you to do a layer 1 transaction to enforce the execution of a layer 2 transaction. What's the point of the layer 2 then, right?
Well,
so this is the
fallback security mechanism, right? It's that if you don't trust the operators of the layer 2, then you can do this, right? And then it allows you to build more risky applications because, for instance, liquidation, right? Maybe most of the time you're fine. You're doing lending, whatever, interacting directly with the layer 2. But for things that are riskier or things that you really need done, you can still inherit the layer 1 security.
Yeah. We encountered this use case exactly in any kind of derivative trading, things like where like margin calls, liquidations, all this stuff, everything where liveness is actually the thing you need to guarantee, right? Is not a directly good match with something which doesn't offer you inherent liveness, right? Which is often the case when, it may be less true for like a permissionless layer 2 where basically everybody can participate and drive it forward, right? If they have enough stake. But usually, even if you do it this way, there's most likely the layer 2, if it is faster, it has less people involved, it has less stake involved, it is either less secure or less live. And some applications really would be not appealing, right, in such a situation where liveness is really important, as you say, in liquidations.
Well, I'm late. Sorry, I had an appointment.
Hello,
I was going
Barry.
to add, hey, how you doing? I had a doctor's appointment this morning. I was going to add that I think right, Hydra head, anything that's like you can almost consider an adversarial interaction, but I mean that not in the typical the standard way, but right, a liquidation. Usually, no one's going to agree to their own liquidation. right? So anything that like needs to be done, but you don't want that party to agree. They have to agree to it. They're not going to. So like that's where Hydra heads have a limitation.
Yeah. So I mean, if the person affected by a liquidation is a validator, they can easily prevent the evolution of state if it is a multi-signature, right? That's what you're saying, which is obvious.
Correct.
It's also with games often the case, right? And you need to work around that. That basically, I mean, not driving the state forward is also not an option because you get punished for that too, right? So, yeah. But then maybe at some point we're just reaching the limitation of this actually very simple form of acknowledging off-chain transactions between a group of validators, right?
Well, I think that's what this seeks to address, right? You're basically giving up the speed and a lot of the benefits for certain transactions where you want these properties. And I think it makes sense because 99% of the time, right, everything is working correctly. So you really only have to worry about making sure that these things are possible, right? In which case you can say that, in this delegated topology, you're inheriting the full security of Cardano, although you're only doing that if you're interacting with it via layer 1 transactions, but that's okay, right? Because at the end of the day, you can choose to do that or not.
Yeah, currently the only situation where we inherit the security of the layer 1 is when you can enforce the closing of the head, you can enforce the last state you agreed to by really stop talking to the others and only talk to layer 1 and enforce the state by doing so, right? So this is where this inheriting the security is happening today. And I think your idea here would be to have other situations where we can rely on the liveness and security of the layer 1 to push the operation also in a situation where we would otherwise could just deny they didn't see it or so, right? Which is not option if you say, okay, there's a layer 2 to Cardano, having something published on a layer 1 is actually not an option to say I didn't see it, right? That's interesting. Somebody taking notes, by the way. I need to transcribe the meeting and recording it at least after to harness all this.
Yeah, if you share the notes, I can. I'll rewatch anyway, so I can help with some notes.
Oh yeah, perfect. Thanks, Perry, for that. And I think we had a very good list of topics today. Exciting catalyst proposals coming up. So I'll make sure to also invite you, Phil, if you're interested, to some drafting hours. Jingles, go ahead, please. I'm going to support yours too. Sounds exciting. And I would say, is there anything else? So who have we new here? Aaron, you want to be a member. That means you're going to be invited for all future meetings unless you don't come 3 times in a row. And if you don't respond now, you're not going to be a member anyways because you didn't pay attention.
No, well, I mean, I will show up, I promise.
Yeah. So it's an invitation. If you want, just drop me an email address here in the chat, which I can use to invite you and list you as a member. And welcome. And other than this, I think we had a good mix today. And if anything you wanted to talk about, still want to talk about, bring it next time in 2 weeks. And Perry and Trim will be probably hosting it or so, or somebody else who wants to see this happen, and have an agenda item for next time then.
So just for confirmation, you're okay with you're interested in doing this proposal?
I'm interested in doing it. I won't be able to market it very much in the next 2 months because I'm going to become a father any day now. I would be interested in working on this next year, and I would be even more confident if you would be part of the party, because I'm sure we would have a lot of fun and like kind of finding and bridging these concepts, Hydra and Midgard together.
And I'll be going a few rounds promoting everything sort of Hydra related in Catalyst, more or less. Anyway,
Anyways,
yeah, I'll be happy to push it out. Although Phil, you probably have a much bigger reach than me anyway.
Okay, awesome. Can we set up a meeting at some point then to work on a draft of the proposal together? Yeah, great.
Yeah, if it happens the next couple of days, it's more likely I can attend that too. Awesome. Congrats to you, Jingles, too, and Perry.
Yeah, one thing I was going to add, and I gave this idea to Sebastian, but he made a good point. But does it make sense for, like, we could say just for the working group or whatever else, do we want our own Twitter handle? Essentially, I think there's lots of things. The reason I'll argue for it is that it would be nice, right? Lots of things are happening, but and everyone retweets and you see it in different places, but there's typically no like one place you can kind of follow where you could be, that could be retweeting everyone's work and, promoting it and whatever else. And so people are okay with that. Our thoughts, I can help, and we can get an account and we can get a password shared among whoever wants to help manage it.
The real question is, should we set up a Hydra intern as well?
I love it.
Yes, I like this idea.
Twitter account. Yeah.
Okay.
Everything in Cardano needs a Twitter account
and a committee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to, via the committee, we need to do a democratic vote now, for best on chain to actually do this motion and see it.
I suggest a quorum of 1, so let's just do a vote. Okay, it's approved.
Just so I'm a big process guy. Just I'll take this offline. But if there's an email address you want to use, or if there's one we can create through Intersect or something, that even with the listserv or something like that to a group of people, then we have an email address, because you actually have to use a unique email address for every account. You can't use the same one. So one that goes to a couple of people. So if we have to do a password reset or something like that, you know what I mean.
So that's a good idea. So I would say
I'll take it offline.
Yeah, that would be perfect. And maybe we can use the Discord channel to agree on it, and maybe how to arrange it, organize it, right? And what it stands for, I think. But for the working group, seems like a nice step direct. We never really did it at IO. I'm not sure why. And I feel like we just missed the boat on it, right? And it's been a while since we worked on it. So, but now with this working group, and I think it's broader than just this one group of people working at IO on it. It's actually multiple people working on it, and it's more of a
Twitter is very important in Cardano for sharing even technical tooling. Like that's where people find out about the new blockchain frameworks, etc. Like Blaze or whatever. So
I have a love-hate relationship with Twitter. So but it is Phil is correct. It's the place that people go.
I do a bunch of shit posting anyway, so I can probably help operate the account.
Cool. That's good.
If you can do something cool about, right? So we have a GitHub repository, which is the single source of truth of this existence of this working group. If you can have something where by just having write access to repository or so, you could actually get a hold of things, a secret there. I'm not sure, probably. Is there a GitHub managed Twitter account, authentication system, or whatever, right? So how can we make this work for the members, actually, whoever they be, right? It must not be me. And just if you share the secret with me and then we rotate it or not, how do we manage access to it? I think that would be very interesting. And I think that's the problem, rather, and not like who will have access to it, how, right? And how can we make sure that actually it's the people who have a vested interest in the future of the project, which are the people here, right? How can they just be there and tweet for it? And maybe some 1 or 2 rules, right? What you should not do, or maybe it's just what if you misuse it, right? And then you get kicked out.
Everyone should ask. Whoever has access should ask everyone else before posting something. Don't want to run into a situation where it's like.
Yeah, so maybe no post before with a message before in the intersect, and with like everybody can veto, right? So you say, oh no, don't post this, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's fine.
No Hosky tweets.
Look at this guy, man.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that.
Okay. So that's actually something. Feel free to propose something. Let's put it into the charter, right? It's actually in the README doc, the first file in the repository README, Cardano scaling and VG Hydra. This is actually our charter. Great idea. Let's do it. Let's just encode it there, and then we can also use it actually for highlighting interesting, good proposals which would drive our cause forward.
Cool.
Awesome. I think let's wrap it up. And
I gotta run. So.
Yep. See you all in the internets at some point.
Adios.
Bye, bye.
Bye-bye.